it's no different on Clean than it is any other movie, and you're always pushing to get the most out of the clock. You know, there's always a finite amount of time, and I think the real the real goal, the real discipline for any filmmaker, I think independent or otherwise, is to try in prep, even in soft prep and in development, to build a thing so that you're taking advantage and you're of your limitations. You're making your limitations into assets, and you're sort of embracing them early on.
Welcome to Film Forums. I'm Sean David Johnson, and my guest today is Paul Solet. He's the writer, director, producer of Clean, starring and co-written by Adrien Brody, also starring Chandler DuPont, Michelle Wilson, Glenn Fleshler, Richie Merritt, and Denora Walcott. If this is your first time tuning into Film Forums, or if you've viewed our interviews before and just haven't thought to, please subscribe, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You can also follow us on Instagram. And Paul, thank you so much for being here today. It's a pleasure.
You too. Thanks for having me.
So, Paul, early on in your career, I read something that you had a little bit of a collaboration with Eli Roth.
Yeah, I've known Eli since I was a little kid. He was my camp counselor when I was like, I guess I met him when I was probably 10 or 11. Eli and his brothers Gabe and Adam are like, they were formative parts of my life, and like for a little kid who was already obsessed with horror films and running around with like a Fangoria magazine, and I think I hit it off with those guys right away.
That's great. And what was that relationship like? What did you learn from what did you learn from working together?
I mean, we worked together a little bit, but mostly we're just friends. I watched. I don't think I really understood that you could make a career out of making films. And I think when I met the Roths, all three of the brothers are incredibly creative guys, and just were really, really good to me growing up. Eli, they were already making all these great movies. Like their home movies are insane and incredible. Like I hope someday people get to see those movies. They were just doing wacky, crazy shit. I watched as they came out here to Los Angeles, and I would come and stay with Eli when I was sort of feeling out coming out to Los Angeles too. I even before that, I watched him go to Tisch, and I would visit him in the city, and it was just awesome, like just seeing the student films that he was making. Like his student films were winning awards already, and it just made it concrete to me that you actually can do this. You can go make a career out of it.
That strikes me pretty close to home. Because so many creatives grow up in families and environments where they don't have those personal examples in their life. You had a beacon right in front of you of what is possible, and since then, your work has been connected to and involved people like Antonio Banderas, John Malkovich, Darren Aronofsky, Jason Blum, Michael Douglas, Ron Howard. Young filmmakers and actors wish they could be further along in their careers right now because of money pressures. Maybe they don't want to wait tables. But how are you a different storyteller now than you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago?
I'm a father now. I have a 6-month-old baby. That has changed everything about me. And put everything in perspective and right size the world for me in a way that I don't think anyone who isn't a father probably could understand. I married a woman who I fell in love with, who I never thought I would meet a woman as incredible as that. That's changed me incredibly. I think from a craft standpoint, like I really am a believer, in treating screenwriting and directing like a working class job. You get in, you clock in, you do your work, and you leave. And I actually try my best when I've done the hours to leave it so I can go be with my family. I think the biggest differences are, I still believe in the same approach structurally. I always build a movie the same way. That's stuff I learned, many, many years ago. I think I'm a little bit looser probably in certain ways. But really the big changes are changes that happened just in me as a human being, less so in craft.
In approaching your work, and we're going to talk about clean in just a moment, but what are some core values that you bring into your work? And now I know that you're evolving. I'm a father too, so I know what that changes you. What are some of your core values that you try to bring into the work that you do?
I am always looking for what is honest. It's like there's no slick way to articulate it. Like I'm always looking for what is, what really is the truth here, and that can mean any number of things. Like there are. I'm not someone who believes, a documentary can only be made in a, handheld verite. Like the truth can very much be, simulated, there's just all kinds of ways to get to it. That's a core value for me. I think there's really nothing more helpful to understand than the idea that it's never going to come out fully formed. Like it's going to come out, it's going to be a piece of shit. Your first work will suck. Your second, third, fourth, fifth, attempt, all shit. They should all be lit on fire. Eventually, 20 ideas in, you may get to something that's worth seizing on or chewing on for a bit or spitballing with a partner. But just to iterate again and again and again, and to be willing to put in that work and to sort of grind a thing. That's the only way I know how to get to something honest. The rest is all, echoes of other shit that you saw or, ego or, and that stuff needs to get chewed away and sort of melted away.
How long did it take you to complete the script for Clean?
Clean was a pretty fast process. I think by the time Adrien and I started working on it, we really trusted each other a lot. We had a very good experience on Bullethead together. We just, we have very similar sensibilities. Bullethead was like just, all of our favorite stuff thrown together, and we spent a long time, in Eastern Europe together hanging out. And so I think by the time we started working on Clean, we were able to be sounding boards for each other and get to the truth pretty quickly. And Adrien's, core philosophy is 100% about the truth. He will always press for what is honest. If you asked him that question, that's exactly what he would say. And it's true. It's absolutely true. He will 100% flag something if it doesn't feel right for him. And I'll do the same.
In a recent interview, you had said, I've never given him anything that he hasn't made remarkably better. Is there an example that sticks out in your mind? And based on that example, what do you think other actors, aspiring actors, could learn from that example?
There are too many to give. I mean, I mean that literally. I've never ever given him not a single line, that he hasn't found a way to he will always push to find the truth, and he works his ass off. He goes home at night and he studies. That's what he does. That's the only way I can put it.
What were some of your favorite things about filming Clean? And what was maybe the most challenging?
Anytime you're filming an independent movie, there are limitations, but I think there are limitations. There are always limitations. It really, like, as I started to work with, some people who are working on much bigger things, and started to sort of watch what their processes were and their struggles, you start to realize, like, it's the same thing, whether you're working on a $150 million movie or a $20 million movie or a $5 million movie or a $500,000 movie. The $150 million movie inevitably really should be a $350 million movie, and they're cutting days and they're doing the same shit that you're doing. So, the challenge is always the clock, and it's no different on Clean than it is any other movie. And you're always pushing to get the most out of the clock. There's always a finite amount of time. And I think the real goal, the real discipline for any filmmaker, I think independent or otherwise, is to try in prep even in soft prep and in development, to build a thing so that you're taking advantage and you're of your limitations. You're making your limitations into assets, and you're sort of embracing them early on. The worst thing that you can do is get to set and you have like you're not gonna we've had days where we've split and pulled 70 setups. But it's maddening, and you can't count on that. Everything has to go right. It's better to for me, I find that it's better to really be realistic about how fast you guys can move, what is important to you, identify those things, and instead of killing yourself shooting coverage, focus on the performance, and when you have it, you can go.
As I was watching, I really enjoyed the film. I've kind of been emotional since there, because it does have this kind of sadness and humanity attached to it. And it made me curious though about filming acts of violence and what that might, as an actor, my background, years ago, I've spent a lot of time acting, so I understand kind of from an acting point of view. As a director, how would you describe, when you're filming violence, do you carry any of that with you afterward? Do you sort of need to detox from that, or, what is that experience like as a director?
It's a great question and really well articulated, and I think an important one. I think, it's a really thin line between, this is a movie where violence is a core theme. You're dealing with a guy who is exceptionally good at doing something really horrible, and you cannot portray that by sort of softening it. Like it just doesn't work. There's no way around it. You won't convey the theme. It won't be communicated. So, it's a sort of you're sort of constantly working to sort of walk the line between, you don't want to move into exploitation and unnecessary titillation. You want to sort of stay tasteful and on theme and make sure you're communicating that stuff. So as far as the experience of shooting it, I love so much the professionals that work on that stuff. I love those departments. I love every department. I'm such a geek, like, for filmmaking. Like my favorite thing is to kind of just wander around and learn more about the departments. I love the special effects technicians, special makeup effects, all that stuff. Watching how squibs work and flash bulbs, and so I have so much respect for that stuff, and I'm so conscious of the craft elements of it. It doesn't have an effect on me like that. It's not real world violence. Real world violence is different. Real world violence affects me. This is, to me, not that when it's being made.
Well, we're just about out of time. I just have one last question for you. What would you say is the most gripping thing that audiences that you hope that they take from Clean?
Adrien is a force of nature in this. It's Adrien gave he left everything on the field here. It's all about what he brings to it. We have seen Adrien do incredible things. Everyone knows this about Adrien Brody. No one would say otherwise. But this actually is a new area that we have not seen something like this from him. Adrien is a fucking force of nature in this movie, and I hope that's what you take away from it.